Well, welcome everybody to the latest Agent Matters. Now, these are our regular panel discussions, which we started at the beginning of the pandemic earlier this year. And it's where we catch up with agents to discuss the latest developments, the challenges, the positives as well, to find out how agents are faring at this time. Now, the title of this session is a pretty brutal one, Operation Survival. But we know for many agents, it really is coming down to this. The government is continuing to ignore or fail to understand the unique challenges facing this sector. We still have no clear sign as to when airport testing is going to start, or even if it is, given the latest headlines this week. And we've yet to hear when cruise is going to come back on the map. So how are agents coping with the latest developments? Have the Chancellor's announcements offered any respite? And how are they hoping to boost business over the coming months? Well, here to address all of these points and any other questions that you might have, and please do use the Q&A function, the chat function on the right of the screen, to ask any questions of our fab panel. But please welcome this morning Graham Brett, Westo Travel, Katrina Smith from Travel Counsellors, and Phil Nuttall from the Travel Village. And just while they're joining us, just a reminder to please do use the Q&A, the chat function, to ask any questions or points that you want to raise or comments during the discussion. Well, welcome to our panel. I can see that they've joined us here. Firstly, just to kick off the discussion, now, this is quite a unique one because all of you have very different businesses. So, Graham, I think I'm right in thinking that you're based in South Shields, which means you've obviously been in lockdown for several weeks. Phil, a huge proportion of your business was traditionally cruise, so I can imagine you've had an enormous challenge there. And Katrina, as a self-employed home worker, I know a lot of home workers have been in despair at the lack of support from the government. So let's just kick off really with how each of you are. Graham, let's start with you. How is lockdown, again, going for you on the business?
The crazy thing about lockdown is that each part of the country has different rules. So the government brought in the rule of 6 to apply to the whole country. Then Scotland brought in their own rules. Wales has got their own rules. And then the various parts of England have got different rules. So if we wanted to send a customer to Wales, we can't because people aren't allowed in or out of various Welsh counties. Our customers, they've got restrictions on what they can do, and they can't go to a pub with people from a different house in the northeast, but they can go to a pub with people from a different house if they go to a different part of the country, as long as it's not Wales or one of those other areas. So we had some customers due to go to Leeds, and Leeds has a local lockdown. So we had to do some research on that, and Leeds local lockdown rules only apply to people who, and this is their words, have their council tax paid to Leeds City Council, or Leeds City Council collect their bins. So if our people go to Leeds, the Leeds local lockdown restrictions don't apply to them. However, the pubs aren't likely to be very open because the local people can't use the pubs. And it's just absolutely crazy. There's talk today of having a traffic light system, so we would know which part of the country was at what level, but it depends what each council has asked for as to what restrictions they've got. I mean, if we send somebody to Northumberland, which is part of our lockdown area, then they wouldn't be able to go with one of their family from a different household. But if we send them to the Lake District, for example, then they could.
Oh gosh, so it's utter chaos is basically what you're saying.
Yes, it's just a shambles.
Oh, great. Okay, well, we'll come back to some of those points because I think that general level of confusion is what has been symptomatic of the government throughout this entire process.
Yeah.
But Phil, we'll come to you now. So talk to us about how you're doing with your business, because cruise is such a huge part of it. How are you coping? How is business at the moment?
I think we've got a diverse business, so we're lucky because we've got Paula's Holiday Village, the home working side, which is thriving, believe it or not, it's doing very well. Then my side of the business, which is predominantly cruise, there is the Travel Village side. Well, the cruise side has just been totally and utterly decimated. You know, I think most cruise businesses, are borrowing heavily, either personally, or through government schemes, or investors putting money in. There is nobody in the cruise industry that has escaped this, and some will survive, some won't. Probably too little, too late. So, from our point of view, we're lucky. We've got a very diverse business that's one side's propped up the other a little bit,
Yeah.
to be honest. But the guys, selling cruise are still selling cruise. What's been quite interesting is the amount of people who rebooked. Cruise people are confident in the cruise holidays. And we can talk about that later on because there's lots going on, as you know. So, we've got a lot of business rebooked. Probably about 70% more than that maybe have rebooked,
Wow.
which is brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So cruise people are great people. They love cruising. New to cruise, that's going to be a challenge, no doubt about it. But that's bizarre because when we talk later, it's probably the safest holiday that you're going to be able to go on. So,
Yeah.
and it has been traditionally, but we will talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll come on to that. And Katrina, talk to us about your side of things, because presumably, at least you're used to working from home and you don't have the overheads of a retail space, but it obviously comes with its own unique challenges being a self-employed home worker. So how are you doing at the moment?
Yeah, it is different for home workers. Some of us obviously are self-employed sole traders, so we've had some help from the government in that respect. But equally, there are a lot of home workers that have registered companies, and they're getting no help whatsoever from the government. So they are really struggling. So I think everyone deals with it differently. Everyone's got to do what's right for them and their families. So for some people, now's the time they've decided they'll go elsewhere. They'll give up their travel and they will find some other employment. Others will take a second job to see them through until travel returns.
Mm-hmm.
So it's whatever's right for everybody. And, we're getting a lot of support from our head office. And their attitude is do what's right for you and your family. And I think that's all anyone can do.
Yeah, supporting of the staff and colleagues.
Yeah.
And what about Rishi Sunak's announcement? Because there was a lot of fanfare, there was a lot of hope in the industry, certainly, in the last few weeks that we would get this kind of positive news from him. But when it came, I think it's 2 weeks ago now, has it offered any respite? Graham, let's start with you. No, you're shaking your head.
It's just a disaster. I was shocked to see ABTA welcome it at first, but I think they jumped the gun. I haven't yet found anybody that's going to use the scheme. I found it of any use. I mean, basically, you're getting a third of a week's work, and you're paying 55% of the wages. So for every 3 staff, you're paying 165% of one person's wage. So just put it in simple terms, if 3 staff were getting £500 each, the employer would end up paying £825 for £500 worth of work, which is just not going to happen. And the employer is going to say, well, we'll have one person to do the work and the other 2 we're going to have to let go. And there's just going to be tens of thousands of jobs lost, not just in travel, but in every industry. And it's really just a con job that the Chancellor and the government are giving the impression of providing support. And certainly the way the announcement was made, it gave the impression that they were giving 2/3 of the salary, the way it was presented in Parliament. And it's just totally misleading. I can't see any firm making use of it. And we're just going to lose so many jobs, and we need to do something as a travel industry to try to find some sort of temporary jobs to provide work for our people to keep them going until travel returns. Because if people leave travel and get other jobs, we're not going to get them back. And there's so many experienced people are going to be lost to the industry.
That's an interesting idea. So create a temporary scheme or temporary job scheme that the people in the industry could join up to, so that we then can get that talent back into the sector when hopefully the good times come again.
Yeah, well, I mean, some companies have done it. I mean, Hayes have got some government contracts that have kept their people busy. Mid Counties Co-op, they moved some of their people into the food stores to keep them busy.
Yeah.
At the weekend, the government announced that they'd taken on some more track and trace contracts, and certainly I think we as an industry should have been there, the consortia and APTA, to try and get in there and then spread out those jobs amongst the industry and give people who are currently furloughed or are going to be laid off the opportunity to do that work until they can return to their proper jobs.
Phil, do you agree with Graham in terms of the lack of support provided by the government? Did you have similar frustrations when Rishi Sunak made his announcements, and how are you coping with the staffing challenges at the moment?
Yeah, I do agree with him. I think Graham's spot on. I think it all boils down to the simple fact that the government does not understand the travel industry. And we've talked about this now for 5 months. We're no closer to the government understanding the travel industry, and we're no closer to believing that they want to understand the travel industry. And some of the comments that have come out, especially from David Dingle yesterday, that no one wants to take responsibility for the sector. So there are things in place to get the sector moving. Cruise, absolutely, both here and in the States. And from the airport point of view, there are processes in place. There's a framework there to get travel moving. The government is hell bent on destroying this industry because they do not understand it and they don't want to take responsibility. I can't get my head around it. I sat with my MP in the office the other day, and he is 100% behind the industry. He speaks up in Parliament. There is a real feeling of revolt now, and in Parliament, both from the Conservatives in-house and from the opposition, that they are now starting to realise that pennies dropping, that we have to get people moving, we have to get the economy going. But like David said, nobody is prepared to take responsibility, and the job scheme was not worth the paper it's written on. And the amount of fraud that's going to be uncovered through the bounce back loans and the Sybil's loans, etc., is frightening. And actually, if the government had woken up earlier, we could have been in a position where travel could have managed its way through this at a much lower cost to human problems and to financial problems for the government if it had been managed properly.
When you say, Phil, if the government had woken up earlier, what would you have liked to have seen then?
What they should have done is there should have been sector-specific support. Okay, so you've got, in my opinion, and I'm not limited to this, but overall, there is the travel industry, there is the hospitality sector, and you've got things like nightclubs, yeah, and their income has been, and our income has been decimated. There's been no support or understanding of those businesses.
Yeah.
And if there'd have been an understanding, especially from our point of view, where you've got administrative and accounts roles within businesses, and travel accounts are the same, Graham will be the same. We have had to pay people to manage the business and refund the customers and provide the level of service that the customer expects. Yeah, we've in effect bailed out the government because we've dealt with all the shit that they've not wanted to deal with. And the airlines, this is the best bit, the airlines who've had all our cash and then don't give it us back are screaming like mad for government bailouts. And the only reason travel's getting to the table is because the airlines are shouting. It's bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre.
Yeah, and I think there is a frustration that I think the government think they're helping the travel industry because they're helping airlines. And they're not really understanding, are they, the complexities of the UK travel industry?
No, we've not, pretty much, we've got maybe a tiny number of redundancies, right? Maybe in our business, that's it. We have decided that there's another way of getting through this, and we're working well as a team. And I'm proud of that. Everyone's contributing. So we're not looking at mass job losses in our business. We're going to sell our way out of this. And I think that we're not far off now as an industry to turning some sort of a corner. But it's going to be tough. The next 3 months are going to be tough. But if the government, somebody can influence the government to wake up with track and trace, so testing them at the airport, tracing, that is the key to getting travel moving. And then all the rest of it will fall into place, vaccinations, etc. But we've now got a policy, and in fairness, we've got testing in care homes and places like that and hospitals, which gives the results in 24 hours, etc., etc. All this new instant testing that needs to get the economy going should be rolled out to the airport and to these places to get things moving. You want to check in at an airport. 10 minutes later, you want to know you can travel. That's where these tests should be put.
Yeah, it's the instant aspect, isn't it? I mean, Katrina, we've heard this week that we're expecting an announcement on airport testing, although it does seem that Shaps has now suggested it's not going to be the solution that the industry wanted. So he's saying about maybe reducing quarantine time and doing sort of tests at home. But his argument is that, a lot of people are asymptomatic and therefore airport tests wouldn't pick up those travellers that were infected. Katrina, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think if we had airport testing, you would have clients itching, ready to go, ready to book their holidays? Do you think that is the main issue preventing people from perhaps wanting to travel and go away because they're scared of getting quarantined when they come back?
I think that is it's not COVID per se, it is the quarantine that bothers them. I was actually talking to a client yesterday that wants to go to Madeira. Madeira will, you can either have a test before you go, or you can actually test on arrival, and you will get the result of that test within 12 hours. Wow. So if they can do it, why can't we? Okay, we're bigger, but I'm sure it is possible. So people are travelling to Madeira now. There are very few places I can send them. So Madeira, I'm pushing at the moment. It is difficult. I don't think it's just the travel industry, and that's something we've got to bear in mind. I think the government only cares about the white collar workers and property. If you talk to a musician, if you talk to the entertainment industry, they've been forgotten, and a lot of them are self-employed. I would love to go to the theatre, but we can't do that. Cinemas, conferences. So there's a huge number of us that have been forgotten. And I don't know if it's possible, maybe I'm being a bit silly, thinking it might even be possible to join up with these other groups that seem to have been forgotten. It's not just about insurance, banks, and property developers. They're not the only ones that bring money into this country. We bring in a huge amount of money into this country. And I think, travel's got to understand we're not the only ones, and let's talk to the other people that have been forgotten as well.
Yeah, you're right there. I got a message to Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber asking him if he would consider, maybe joining us or whatever. Never had a reply. But it's a good point,
Yeah. It's a really pertinent point. I saw yesterday that they had a lot of musicians standing out to playing together, and I was like, well, that's one way of getting literally the noise out there. So perhaps
I think one of the issues that gets me is that we're relying on sort of writing letters and somebody at ABTA ringing somebody in the transport department as our way of communicating with government. And to be honest, to me, that's sort of 1970s campaigning. And modern campaigning is using professional lobbyists. And there are people and firms who are registered as official lobbyists who are allowed to enter Parliament and contact all the members of Parliament direct. And that's where we're missing out. And if you look at some of the industries that are using lobbyists, they're getting their message across. And if you look when the last transport debate took place, it was all about British Airways and their unions and the impact of the redundancies, because their trade unions had probably lobbied the members of Parliament, which is something we haven't done. And when you had a look through the register of approved lobbyists, and there's not one UK travel company, whether it's ABTA or any of the consortia, anybody is actually registered as a lobbyist or is registered as a customer of a lobbyist. Yet there are companies such as Lufthansa has a paid lobbyist in our Parliament, and yet our travel companies and our ABTA haven't. And we're not getting there, and we're not understanding as a business how lobbying works in the British parliamentary system at the moment. And it will cost money to appoint lobbyists to act on our behalf, but we don't have a choice, and the industry needs to do that, and it needs ABTA to lead it and the consortia to join in with regards to funding and to get that message across, because at the moment we're relying on yourselves organising letters, on individual members writing letters, on petitions, but we need to get direct to the members of Parliament, because in December we had 130 new members of Parliament who aren't on the contact list of ABTA and the consortia at the moment, and we've just got to get that message across, and we've got to employ lobbyists.
I mean, They're not here to stick up for themselves. I would just say ABTA would say that they've been having these conversations behind the scenes, and I guess they would be doing their own lobbying as an association. But yeah, I take your point, Graham. And I'm not here to stick up for ABTA, but I guess that's what they would say in terms of those conversations. But sorry, Phil, you were going to make a point then?
No, I think that Clear has done a very good job, because it is global. ABTA's, the UK, but Clear is a global organisation, and they seem to have done some incredible work behind the scenes that sets a framework for moving forward for crews. And I think it will just highlight how, what worries me is the people who are advising the government. That I absolutely have no trust or faith in Public Health England, and I don't think the majority of the people of the UK have any trust or faith, and I don't think a lot of the members of Parliament now have any trust or faith in Public Health England. And when you look at the work that Clear have done with professional people, scientists, to get the framework in place to get ships moving again, and what MSC have done, TUI have done, Hapag-Lloyd, some of the river lines, is absolutely incredible. All done without Public Health England. They couldn't organise in a brewery, and it's becoming quite clear that it is just a headless chickens running around going, yeah, try this, yeah, we'll try that, and they're advising the government, and the people who are listening are the likes of Matt Hancock. And even now, it's becoming, I'm not defending him because I think he's done a crap job. Grant Shapps, he's even having his wings clipped, looking like, by people like, Matt Hancock and his crew. It's bizarre. It's in front of our own eyes. You're seeing them fighting now, starting to fight, and it's coming out in the media. So what chance have we got as an industry when the civil servants and the Public Health England haven't got a clue? And they haven't. I'm sorry. They don't get the processes of moving forward. We've got to deal with the risks. We've got to deal with COVID. But the way they're doing it is just not working.
Phil, on this work that Clear's done behind the scenes, they've come out with this guidance document at the end of last week, and are we getting the sense that's going to inspire confidence in the market? Because I think there was a bit of frustration at first because they didn't necessarily say passengers were going to get tested. They've now since come out yesterday to say that all passengers will receive a COVID test before they're ready to board the ship. What is the feeling that you're getting from customers when you're telling them about this new guidance? Has that instilled more confidence in the market?
Well, it's only just come out, and we will be communicating it from our company in the right way. But without a shadow of a doubt, it's going to instill confidence.
Right.
100%. And actually, if you were to ask most cruisers, they'll be going, well, obviously. It's not a surprise. They're treating these people like they're idiots. These are educated people who know how good the cruise industry is. Even without these new measures, it was still the safest way to travel. And they still lead the way in innovation, in making passengers safe and giving them great experiences. Before anybody else did, before airports, before airlines did.
The flip side of this guidance is that, it's stating very clearly you must wear masks when you're in all the public spaces. You have to be socially distanced. You can't kind of share your dining table with lots of other people like you often do on a cruise. Katrina, I'm not sure how big cruise is for you, but might that put people off wanting to go on a cruise? What's the sense you're getting from your clients?
I think it's early days. I'm probably about 20% cruise. It is early days. There are some that have always cruised, but they're now saying they won't. I think it's the older people, if you like, that maybe already have health issues that are put off by cruise, and that's media-led. It's all down to the media, and we've got to change their way of thinking and understanding. As Phil said, with the later things that Clear have brought in, if we can educate people that this is how it's going to be. Equally, I've had a couple of completely new to cruise people contact me that want to still cruise. It's early days. I probably haven't got as big an insight to Phil on the cruise market. I'm missing my ship visits.
No,
I can tell you from my experience, and even walking into the shop on Saturday, there were an elderly couple sat there, and I said, "Thank you for coming in. Thank you for your business. It's really appreciated. How are you doing?" "Oh, we're great. We're booking for Benidorm for winter. We know it might not be going, but we just booked our cruise for next year." And I said, "Are you worried? Why? You know why?" He said, "Listen, we've got a life to live. We've got a
There is
life to live.
that.
We have got a life to get on with." My parents next door are the same. They both had triple heart bypasses. They are absolutely beside themselves, the fact they can't travel. And they want to travel. They're at the other end of the scale here. They're not 24, they're 74. They want to travel. They've got a life to live. They've
Yeah.
lost this year. And again, I still say it, public opinion is turning.
Yeah.
These people want to travel, and they know that when they get on a ship, these older people, they will be looked after. And they want to take that, they want to go away and have those experiences.
Let's look at this side of things, because Katrina quite rightly pointed out, as we were talking yesterday in our sort of prep, Katrina, you said, can we at least acknowledge the positives? But quite rightly, because amidst all of this doom and gloom, and there is so much doom and gloom out there, we see it on the 10 o'clock news every night, but there are still positives, and it's fantastic to hear stories like I had a couple who've never cruised before that want to holiday, and Phil, to hear about people are still wanting to go away. Graham, what's business like for you at the moment? Are people still wanting to book? And if they are, what kind of holidays are they looking for at the moment? I know there's only a handful of destinations. I think there's 6 that are open without restrictions right now. But is there still an appetite, if not to travel now, to book for 2021 and 2022?
There is. Certainly on the cruise side, we found the same thing, that the older customers are still wanting to cruise. We have found some of them, though, it's their families are pressuring them and not wanting them to go. And again, as a colleague said, that's because of media. And we need to get that message across, because certainly the older people want to go, and it's like, look, we need to go on holiday this year. We might not be able to go the year after, type of thing.
Right.
Where we've always done a lot of domestic breaks, so we've obviously been pushing them as well. We've obviously been hit as well by the fact that EasyJet pulled their hub from Newcastle Airport at the beginning of September, and we lost 12 destinations through that, which wasn't good. So we have still got people booking for Greece and Cyprus at the moment, but also for next year. The problem with the bookings for next year is that everybody is paying a deposit, and obviously we don't get commission on a deposit, so we're actually losing money. Although it's good for business to have that business stocked up for next year, at the moment we're losing money on every booking, because we're taking the deposit, we're passing the full deposit over to our operator, but we're then having to pay the credit card charges and the bank charges to pass that money over. And certainly what I'd like to see is tour operators to acknowledge that, and to pay a commission to agents from the deposit. And I'm not asking them to pay it from theirs, just to take and increase the deposit. So if the customer is currently paying, say, £100 deposit, they increase the deposit to 110, so they can pay us a commission. But we need that, because I say we're working our guts out to get bookings for New Year for the tour operators, and it's costing us money every time we make a booking.
And are customers understanding of that, Graham?
No, because they're wanting to, from their point of view, they just want to pay a deposit because they don't know what's going to happen next year, but they want to have something to look forward to. So I don't want to involve the customers in the fact that we're not getting commission on the deposit. I'm just there to encourage them to book for next year. But I want the tour operators to work with us and to turn around and say, we'll give you a commission on the deposit.
That ties into my next point, actually. Are you getting enough support from suppliers at this time? Do you feel like operators could be doing something more? And without sort of naming names or anything like that, what would you want to see from suppliers to support you more?
I think the suppliers have all been good, and they're giving us plenty of promotional material that we can use, and videos and screenshots and things that we can share with customers. I certainly haven't got any complaints from what we're getting with customers. We did have a problem getting hold of some actual hard copy brochures, because Tradegate was closed for 6 months and only reopened 2 weeks ago. So we had a lot of companies that produced new brochures that we couldn't get our hands on, that were sitting in Tradegate's warehouse, but they've started to arrive, so we can actually give customers brochures and give them something to look forward to and generate bookings from that.
But largely, you feel like you're getting good support from your tour operator partners.
In relation to new bookings, yes.
Yeah.
Obviously, with some of them, we had problems getting refunds, and we've moved on from them. But certainly, with regard to new bookings, we're getting very good support. Yes.
We've got a comment here from Margaret May. She says, we're now having to prepare to refund clients who've moved their holidays to the end of the year, as it does not look like they will be able to travel. I mean, that's the other frustration, that travel businesses are still having to pay out. While, like you said, you might be getting new bookings in, but it's deposits, so it's still more money continuing to come out of the company.
Yeah.
Katrina, what about that on the sort of tour operator side? Do you feel like you're getting enough support? And tell us your reasons to be positive at the moment.
I think I'm quite a positive person anyway. I've had my days when I've sat there with my head in my hands. But I think the only way forward is you certainly got to be positive where your clients are concerned. They're looking to us for advice. I think when this all started, back in April, we didn't know what we were doing. Let's put our hands up. It was, we hadn't a clue nothing like this had ever happened before. Yeah, it was crazy. And it was like the end of the world, if you like. We're now in a better position in that we now know how to handle it. And I do appreciate we're still not earning anything. But we can talk our clients through the procedures now. We can talk them through, yes, book next year. If it doesn't happen, this is what we can do. We can amend your holiday. And it's creating the positivity with your clients so that they will book next year rather than keep hanging on and hanging on. Give them that confidence that should it not happen, we can amend, we can refund. Be upfront how long refunds are taking. They're a lot quicker now than they were back in April.
Right. Okay, that's good.
So I think we're in a better position in that we know how to handle it.
and Phil, likewise with you, it's like you said, fab to have this kind of couple coming in and booking Benidorm, but are there any other reasons to be positive? And also, what more would you like to see suppliers doing to support agents, or are they doing a fantastic job as it is?
First thing, I think Margaret's question is absolutely spot on. This is another classic example of why we need the testing at the airports so that we can open up travel. Why there is no reason, if we get this R rate down, or even if we don't, as long as we're testing people, there is no reason why we shouldn't be opening up the Canary Islands this winter, because by God, this industry needs it. It could be the one thing that really turns it, round and keeps people afloat. And the government is not making any statement or any positive signs, and I don't know what the airport's influence is, but we should be looking at getting the Canary Islands open this winter and moving heaven and earth. Both the British and the Spanish governments should be working closely to protect the jobs in the UK and in Spain. And it's criminal if that is not happening. That we can open that up on the 1st of November because everybody's ready to do it. The will's there. But yeah, positivity. Yeah, I think we are getting close to things starting to move. I think we've got to stay focused on 2021. We can't get this winter, that's for sure. So,
with airport testing, if we don't get this, this announcement that we're all hoping for, that airport testing is going to be a thing, and instead Mark Chap says, I just want to try and reduce the self-isolation period and we'll do the testing, in people's homes, might that still be a big step to instilling confidence, or is it until we get actual airport testing that's going to be the real solution? That's the only thing that's going to kickstart the market, do you think?
Whichever. If those tests are out there and they're quick and we can use them, then there's no reason why you can't go to chemists, places. You should be able to go anywhere to get that test 48 hours or whatever before you travel, and you take that with you to the airport, and then you'll get on the plane, and then when you get there, it's up to airports and hotels or whatever, hotels can test people. The cost of it's coming down, but there's got to be a solution to get people traveling, and science can make that happen. but you've got to have the will of, those idiots who are in Public Health England talking to the right people, because their own people obviously got the policy wrong, to get us moving and get the industry moving. It's as simple as that.
And do we feel that quarantine is the biggest hurdle in this? How do we get more consumer confidence? Are there things that destinations could be doing to instill more confidence, to reassure people? We've seen Portugal, for example, having these kind of COVID safety mark stamps that are given to various different tourism businesses that sign up. Do destinations need to be thinking more strategically about putting schemes in place like this to reassure customers? Or is it actually that everyone just wants to travel? They're quite happy. It's just the quarantine that puts them off. Graham, what would your thoughts be on that?
I think it's both. Certainly, the quarantine is a big issue. We've had a lot of people who are working for, such as either schools or NHS, who simply cannot do the quarantine and will not book at the moment because of that. But I think it needs both the quarantine in this country sorted out, but it also needs the destinations to be clear, because I think there's people are now having to look at going to destinations they haven't been to before, so they perhaps hadn't been to Greece or Cyprus, or a couple of weeks ago maybe including that Turkey, and they had preconceptions about what it was like there, and they need to see sort of videos. I mean, the Turkish Tourist Board did a video, an advert on television, which was absolutely fantastic and certainly changed my perception of Turkey. And we need more countries to do that sort of thing. I can understand their reluctance to want to spend money advertising in case the government 2 weeks later turns around and imposes quarantine. So it is chicken and egg, but I do think everybody has to work together. And we seem a lot of the time to be as an industry fragmented, with everybody, the consortia and APTA and everybody else doing their own thing. And we've got to be more joined up, and we've got to work together more.
I think you're spot on there. Absolutely, Graham. And what Jenny just said in that comment, what happens if you get there and you test positive at the airport? Well, we have to have an agreement with far better for the airlines to be flying and then maybe losing the odd passenger who can't travel and giving them a full refund. There's all sorts of things we can do. There's no reason why we can't do that. It's about finding a reason to do something, not looking for reasons not to do something. And then you get the government on a Thursday at 5 o'clock. All the travel agents in their buildings, those who are working in shops, not those at home. Can you imagine at 5 o'clock you get told, right, that's it, you can't travel tomorrow because when they come back they'll be quarantined. So, the government doesn't even get the fact that, in fact, we knew before Jet2 knew last week. The government doesn't even understand that this advice should be coming out to give travel agents the chance to talk to the customers.
Yeah.
They're absolutely clueless.
And that point was actually in TTG's Safe Travel letter, which I should say we're still waiting for a reply, even though we push them every week for a reply. But that exact point was in it, because we said the travel industry needs more advanced warning to be able to tell their customers what's going on and to start planning. Just to flag Jenny's point, as you said, Phil, she says, does airport testing open up a new can of worms? Who pays for the tests? Well, at the moment, Schatz is saying they should be privately funded. He's saying, that the government shouldn't be paying for them. But there is an argument, should the industry be paying for them? Could we put APD towards them? Would that encourage people to travel if airlines foot the bill, but they haven't got any money either? She says, if they're a positive, are they turned away? What if they test positive coming home? Who pays them to isolate in a foreign country? And that is another frustration, of course. And I guess it depends how big tourism is to a certain destination, because we've seen some countries coming out, like Cyprus initially said, we'll fund your sort of quarantine payments or things, if you test positive for COVID while you're here, but you do need a destination to prioritise tourism over everything else for them to foot that bill. Margaret May also makes a point here about SEO advice against travel as a huge error, and that's an issue we've covered at length here. Katrina, what are your thoughts on that? Presumably clients are going to be put off, if SEO, and I know we've seen some insurance providers coming out saying, it's okay, take our insurance and you can bypass SEO advice, which we've never seen before. But Katrina, what are your thoughts on that?
I've certainly seen a lot of clients, they're not as bothered by quarantine because so many people are working from home, but it is that SEO advice. They're not going to be covered for insurance. So
And
that is a really, really big deterrent.
would they look to take out some of those insurance products that do allow them to still travel?
I'm not comfortable with them doing that. That puts quite a big strain on up. That ends up on our shoulders at the end of the day. Because in my book, if suddenly the airline was to decide, well, that route is no longer viable and I've still got somebody stuck out there, it's my job to get them back. And I said they could go, even though the FCO said they shouldn't. So I think it opens up a real can of worms if you're letting your clients go against FCO advice. So you've got to be really, really honest to them of the pitfalls of doing that. I think possibly if people are going ahead, we really should tell them all about COVID insurance. There are a number of insurers now that will insure for if they suddenly were to contract COVID just before they went, or if they were to contract you whilst they were there. So that's something I think we should look more into. And more insurance companies are coming up with their insurances. Yes, it's another expense, but it's something
it's also really small print, isn't it? Because a lot of them are saying, using the word COVID, when you delve deeper, it's looking into actually which aspects of COVID are you covering. Yeah. Is it just an airfare, or is it covering your quarantine period in a foreign country? Or Graham, I saw you nodding along to some of Katrina's points.
It's the other point on that is that our professional indemnity insurance doesn't cover us if we send a customer to a destination against Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office advice. So we wouldn't have cover ourselves for that. So which is one of the reasons why we wouldn't send anybody against the FCO advice.
See, and Phil, I can see you nodding. Presumably that's the same for your business as well.
Yeah, I think it's just another indicator that the insurance companies are now jumping on the bandwagon because they've had enough of the government policy. Everybody's trying to find a way around and trying to offer a solution. The only people in this from day one to now who've not wanted or been interested in finding a solution to travel is the Public Health England and those who are advising the government. It's as simple as that.
I think we can work this to our advantage now as well, though, because we as travel professionals, we know, we've just said all the pitfalls if you go against Foreign Office advice, finding out all the different requirements for entering a country. I mean, you look at Barbados a week or so ago, everything changed. So certainly the inquiries I'm getting now are from people that normally book it themselves.
And
but they're not confident anymore. They need and it may be they'll only need us for a year or two, but let's take them on board and show them what it's like to book with a travel agent and keep them with us. So I think we can use that to our advantage, and we've got to do everything we can to get what we can from it.
And certainly we're seeing the headlines saying about this resurgence in travel agents. And I know they're headlines that we've seen for the last 10 years, but now more than ever, I mean, the fact you've got people like Eamon Holmes talking about travel agents, speaks volumes, speaking publicly. And Phil, presumably, especially if we are going to target that new cruise, I appreciate that's not going to be a target market necessary at the moment, but in time, more than ever, travel agents are going to be more important for explaining how cruise now works, how cruise now looks. And, Katrina said about the negative press, but it's getting that message through that, isn't there?
100%. You go to a solicitor and you pay them probably more than you will be paying a travel agent's commission for advice, and you come out of it with jackal, feeling very aggrieved. You normally walk down the pub and have a drink to try and get over the shock of the bill. And yet you can go to people moan about going to a travel agent for great advice, and when they paid that money for the holiday and the commission to the agent, they have something that creates memories and fulfills dreams. So I think we need to be a lot stronger in the industry and start dissing those people who are charging you ridiculous fees for advice, and you come to a travel agent and you think, oh, I'll go direct. No. The days of direct and the 1980s and 90s .com bubble, I think they're gone. There's good travel people out there, and one thing this crisis has proved is that those that are surviving this and those that unfortunately are not made it, but hopefully will come back in. I really hope and pray they do. Yeah. It will highlight that travel people are good people, and they're well worth investing in.
So next steps as an industry, we've said that we're hoping for this announcement this week that will hopefully inspire confidence, whether it's airport testing or testing at home, so that you can at least be enabled to travel. But what now? So you said you've spoken to your MP, and I'm not sure what the name of your MP is, and I know these are kind of small steps, but what else can the industry be doing? We've talked about maybe teaming up with other sectors that have been forgotten, musicians. What else do you want to see the industry doing, united to try and get the government to sit up and take note of the unique challenges facing this sector and the others that you mentioned?
Me?
Yeah, we'll start with you, and then we'll.
Scott, my MP is called Scott Benton.
Okay.
And he's, along with other MPs, is campaigning for. He's actually speaking to the government and lobbying to find out why we are not talking about getting the Canary Islands open this winter, because he gets it.
Oh, great. Okay.
But he wants to travel. They want to travel. They want to go away to some winter sun. So, yeah, MPs, lobbying your MP.
Is he a Conservative?
Yes.
Okay, so he might try and have some of the ear of the of the ministers, perhaps.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think lobbying your MP is really, really important. It really is important, and putting them on the spot.
Wouldn't work where I live.
Yeah, there'll always be one. There'll always be one.
My MP's Jeremy Quinn, Tory whip.
Okay.
Wouldn't work.
Graham, what about you? Have you listened to your MP?
Yes, our MP's been very good, Emma Lowell-Buck. When they had the last transport debate, she did speak, and she did actually call me the night before to have a discussion and to get all the background. And she had planned to raise the various problems of ourselves. Unfortunately, when the debate came, they reduced the time each MP was allocated to 3 minutes instead of the normal 6, because so many wanted to speak. So she didn't get her travel points in. She got a British Airways point across, which was the first half of her speech, and the second half of her speech was about the travel side. So she did ring and apologise straight after that she hadn't managed to get it in. She is very supportive, and I'm in touch with her, but I'm hoping that she will be able to raise more points. But I just feel as an industry that we've been concentrating on sort of government ministers and members of the Conservative group, and we haven't been going to the opposition members of Parliament. And at the end of the day, I just think that if the government see that the opposition MPs are taking this up, and they see that there's 200, 300,000 votes in this for whichever party is seen to be supporting the industry, and they see that the opposition party is potentially getting those votes, then perhaps there's more ground then for the government to respond. But at the moment, we don't have any party fighting for us.
Fighting the corner, yeah, and certainly actually in an interview with Jim McMahon, who's the Shadow Transport Secretary, a few months ago, and he was actually very supportive, and he says that he's in dialogue with Grant Shapps, etc., every day, and he was, receptive. The fact that we got an interview with him was fantastic, but he was supportive of the industry and the unique challenges facing it. It's obviously a lot easier for him as an opposition Shadow Transport Secretary to do that. But to the point about writing to MPs, I should just flag to everybody watching that we do have the template letter on safetravel.co.uk. If you haven't yet written to your MP, please do use that as a template and get in touch with them, because we're still getting contacted by readers every day who are getting responses from their MPs, and it's only with that pressure that we can pile on that we can hopefully try and see some changes. I can see time ticking away. So I just want to flag lastly, and I want to focus on the positives, because like Katrina said, there are still positives out there. Let's talk about peaks, because peaks are just around the corner. This would normally be quite an exciting time right now, where we'd be kind of gearing up to peaks and starting to think about what offers might be on the table and how you're going to entice customers. What do we think peaks is going to be like? Not this year, but 2021 in a few months' time. Do we think peaks is going to be like it was before? Are you guys still planning to kind of ramp up and make the most of that opportunity, or is the year just going to be all over the place because of the chaos that we've had over the last few months? Graham, I'll come to you first, and then Paul, and then Katrina.
I think it's very difficult. We're planning and hoping that that's what's going to happen, but I mean, we at the start of this, we were hoping that July and August was going to happen, and it didn't. So we're working on the basis that peaks will happen. We're trying at the moment to sort of entice customers with videos of far off destinations, so sort of Canada and Alaska and Australia and things, to try and sort of whet their appetite and to try and encourage customers to have a bucket list or a must-do destination. And also, we've been getting across to customers that if they've missed out on the holiday this year, that next year they want to spend a little bit more, and perhaps if they want to go to the same destination, they get a better room with, say, a swim-up pool or something like that, or a private pool, and to spend a little bit more to make up for the disappointment of having lost this year's holiday. So we've been doing all that. With regards to marketing, we have got our own sort of printing facilities that we use for the marketing, so we can do that at relatively short notice. So we have sort of preliminary sort of worked on that, but we haven't committed any cost at the moment, and it'll be very last minute, I think, before we commit the cost when we see what the situation is November time, end of November.
So you're going to wait to see what government announcements are, as well as what kind of tour operators are saying in terms of the offers they're going to be pumping out if they are going to be.
Yeah, but it's certainly from a financial point of view, we need peaks to happen. Because this year has been such a disappointment. We've had nothing since the beginning of the financial year, and we need to get some money in before the end of the financial year. And peaks is probably the last opportunity to be able to do that.
Might you be tempted to push it slightly earlier and kind of capitalise on maybe December instead, because this year has been so different, and trying to bring peaks earlier than perhaps you might have done?
If quarantine is released, but I think as long as the quarantine and the Foreign Office advice is there, then we're told off.
Yeah, okay. Phil, what about you? Is peaks going to be a big one for you this year, or wave for the cruise sector?
First of all, I think that we need to get a change in government policy. Graham's spot on. The confidence is going to come from a change in government policy. That's the first thing. Will that happen in cruise? If the R numbers come down, yes, I think cruise will be really a big thing. But for the whole industry, to give travel agents some confidence, we talk about positivity, okay? I think that we could have a mini wave, a mini peaks in November. I think there's a real possibility of that. We're going to see some cruise lines launch in summer 22. So that's going to give the cruise industry a boost. We're going to see the likes of TUI, I think, launching products for 22, etc. So I think that there is November's a month that could be quite productive and for everybody. But again, we need more than just a government blanket FCO advice. It's got to be that they're now seen to be working with us to open up destinations. And if we get that, then there is great reason to be positive.
Okay, but it all depends on that government pressure, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And Katrina, what about you? How are you kind of going to be focusing on peaks? Are you planning to maybe try and bring it earlier? Could we see this mini peak in November?
I think if government support does come, it's not going to come quickly. So I do think we've got to concentrate now on what we can do rather than what we can't do, so that some form of peaks will happen. I don't think it will be anything like we would normally see. With the best will in the world, it's not going to be. I think we've got to use more digital marketing. We've really got to come to terms with that we need to look at things digitally. Personally, I've been using Zoom. I'm having one-to-ones with my clients. Once you get that whole family in front of you and you can present to them what a destination looks like, whether it's photos, putting videos in, and all the family are seeing it at the same time, at the end of that Zoom session, they are there wanting to book a holiday. The other thing we've been doing to stimulate interest is every other Wednesday evening, we run a Zoom around the world with Katrina. This next Wednesday, it's to Namibia, and we have an expert from that country talking about that country. We regularly have about 20 people log on, and they are developing and creating their own bucket lists. And we're getting a lot of interest on doing that. So I think it's working with technology, letting that do it for you, and keeping your customers interested and aware of what they can do when the time is right. Keep a list of those customers that have shown an interest so that when the time is right, you're on it. You're calling them and saying, look, when we saw something about Tanzania, you really wanted to do that. Let's get it booked now. Yeah. So that's what I'm doing.
This has probably changed your way of working for good now. I assume you'll keep up these kind of Zooms.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
It really is. It was an eye-opener. Because I'm a home worker, yes, I used to go and meet people in a coffee shop, but you might meet the mum, dad, and the teenagers weren't there, and they had a different idea of what that holiday was going to be to what mum had. Now, if you've got them all there in front of you,
Yeah.
Use what you can.
Fantastic. And you can screen share, I guess, and kind of show visual brochures, the virtual brochures.
Yeah. There's so much you can do. And having these events where you've got the expert, your DMC, talking about a country, they know more than we do about that country usually. It opens it up so much.
I think also we need to, it would be, before we close off, I think it would be remiss not to sort of like say thank you to Joanne and the people up at SPA, the Scottish Passenger Association. I mean, they are doing a great job up there, and they've not had it easy. I mean, blooming Cranky's closed everything down up there, so they've got, they really have had it tough, and and they're going to need all the help and support. Scottish agents as well. It's been a real torrid time for them recently.
Yeah, and actually on that note, what has been fantastic is we're seeing the associations being particularly vocal. So they're not just coming together as we have seen. We have seen associations uniting, but we're seeing some fantastic quotes coming around. Julia Lobusai talked about industrial sabotage, which was, she accused the government of, which was picked up by the press. And I think that is fantastic. The industry is speaking loudly. It's just making the government listen. And on that note, I can see Dan Heath has popped a link to our Safe Travel MPs letters. Please do write to them. And in terms of pressure on the government, I should just flag for anyone who hasn't seen, we are planning a Twitter storm tomorrow at 10 a.m. directed at Grant Shapps. We've got a set tweet. Hopefully Dan H will probably pop it into the chat now. But we've calculated it perfectly. We've got the 3 hashtags. It's Safe Travel, Safe Future Travel, and Test for Travel. We're trying to keep the industry united. But at 10 a.m. tomorrow, we want everybody in the industry to tweet at Grant Shapps with this one set tweet, and it's a Safe Travel logo. And hopefully we can try and make him finally listen. And obviously we're doing it on a Thursday before the latest quarantine announcements come in, although there's not many destinations left to close. So
it'd be interesting to see if he turned up to ABTA if it wasn't virtual.
Oh well, at least he's speaking. Fingers crossed he turns up, and at least he is speaking. Yeah. Please do join us in our Twitter storm. And listen, thank you so much to our panel. While everybody is still here, I do just want to flag as well that we do understand the huge mental health toll that this pandemic has taken on the travel industry. We are launching our second mental health seminar shortly. There'll be more details this week. But as a part of that, we're going to be announcing the results of a survey which we've just launched last night. Now, this is a mental health survey asking people across the travel industry about how the pandemic has affected their mental health, and it's entirely anonymous. What we just want to do is to find out how people are coping within the travel industry and what we can do to help. And we are going to be sharing those results. The next seminar will be on October the 28th. More details can be found on ttgmedia.com. All of those watching today are, of course, TTG Plus members. This seminar will be included in your membership, and more details are going to be announced soon. There is a rather special lineup. I can't say anything more, but we do have one fantastic speaker lined up in particular, as well as a host of other fantastic speakers as well. So a huge thank you again to our panelists. Please do take the mental health survey. Please do pass it on to everyone else in the travel industry. We'll make it open for everybody to take it, because we do want to collate as many results as we can. But a huge thank you again to our panelists and to everyone for joining us today. And please just stay positive, everyone. Like Katrina's saying, like Graham was saying, like Phil was saying, please stay positive, stay safe, and stay tuned as ever to ttgmedia.com. Thank you.
Thank you.